How can you support your father? How do you support him moving forward?
Now a son of embattled music mogul Sean Diddy Combs has been accused of...
The courtroom was packed wall to wall, reporters shoulder to shoulder, cameras flashing, and every seat taken by a mix of legal observers, media hounds, and curious onlookers drawn by the gravity of the case. The tension was thick, the kind of pressure that seemed to hum in the air. All eyes were locked on the bench when the judge raised a hand, calling the room to order. A new piece of evidence was about to be introduced. Not a video, but an audio clip. The judge's next words sent a ripple through the crowd. The voice on the recording? Christian Combs, Diddy's own son. A stunned hush fell over the courtroom as the playback began. Christian's voice rang out, unmistakable, clear, steady, and unsettling. He spoke of events inside his father's mansion, behind closed doors. There were references to exclusive guests flown in on private jets, lavish, parties sealed in silence by thick non-disclosure agreements, and envelopes stuffed with hush money. The implications were devastating. Every word painted a picture that put Diddy at the center of it all. At first, Diddy remained motionless, a statue behind the defense table. He took a slow sip of water, his eyes fixed downward. But as the audio continued, his composure began to crumble. His fingers twitched, his jaw clenched. Rage began to flicker in his expression. Then, without warning, he exploded. Diddy shot to his feet, jabbing a finger at the speaker. "This is a damn setup," he barked, his voice reverberating across the courtroom. "That's my son. He's lying. They made him say this." Gasps and murmurs swept through the gallery. Court officers tensed. The judge struck the gavel, demanding order. But the moment had already changed everything. Diddy wasn't just on trial anymore. The betrayal now felt deeply personal.
Major developments tonight involving the case against Sean Diddy Combs, what he decided and what this now means, the move coming just 4 days before his trial is set to begin. Here's Aaron Katursky.
A wave of gasps rippled through the courtroom like a shockwave. Reporters snapped into motion, fingers flying over keyboards, capturing the explosion in real time. The judge slammed the gavel again and again, barking for order. But the room was already slipping into chaos. Diddy was beyond control. Red-faced and shouting, he raged about betrayal, his voice hoarse with fury. "They're setting me up! My own blood!" he roared, his finger still trembling as he pointed at the speakers. His accusations spiraled. Talk of being framed, manipulated, turned on by those closest to him. It wasn't long before U.S. Marshals moved in, surrounding him and urging restraint. But Diddy refused to calm down. It took 2 officers to guide him out as he continued yelling over his shoulder, his words echoing through the corridors. Cameras outside caught every second of it. Within minutes, social media lit up with headlines dubbing it Diddy's courtroom meltdown. But behind the spectacle, one question hung in the air like smoke. What exactly did Christian say? According to insider leaks, the recording detailed intimate knowledge, things that only someone who had grown up inside Diddy's inner world could have known. These weren't rumors. These were revelations from a son who had seen the machine from the inside. And for many, that changed everything.
And when the judge did, Diddy, who was sitting at the defense table with his attorneys, did not show any signs of emotion. He took the room by the U.S. Marshals. Now, his lawyers have vowed to fight this. They are going to be back in court on Wednesday before the judge who will oversee this trial and try to get Diddy to be...
In the chilling audio, Christian spoke of whispered conversations behind closed doors, private flights booked for unidentified guests, and stacks of cash quietly exchanged, all hinting at a tightly controlled operation. The image that emerged was one of meticulous orchestration, with Diddy allegedly pulling every string from the shadows. Some sources say Christian handed over the recording in a bid to shield himself from legal fallout. Others believe it was a matter of conscience, that the weight of silence had finally become too much to bear. Whatever his motives, the consequences were irreversible. The courtroom had been rocked, and Diddy's carefully crafted defense was teetering. His legal team scrambled to contain the fallout. They issued statements painting him as blindsided, heartbroken, and overwhelmed, not just by the charges, but by the betrayal of his own flesh and blood. One attorney remarked, "This isn't just a legal battle. It's a father grappling with the pain of watching his own son testify against him." Despite the chaos, Diddy has remained defiant. He's turned down every plea deal offered, insisting that all encounters referenced in the case were between consenting adults. He's convinced he can beat the charges and reclaim his name. In a bold statement outside the courthouse, he declared, "I'm not just fighting for myself. I'm fighting to prove that a black man can stand his ground in federal court and win." Whether it was pride, principle, or a calculated gamble, Diddy made it clear he's not backing down.
And Sade, accepting a plea agreement would mean that Sean Combs would have to admit to trafficking. Today, he made it very clear that was not going to happen. Diddy maintained all along these encounters involved consenting adults.
The courthouse was already charged with energy before the doors even opened. Crowds gathered outside, buzzing with speculation. Journalists clutched notepads and cameras, and those lucky enough to snag a seat inside arrived early, faces drawn tight with anticipation. No one could have predicted what would unfold, least of all, Diddy. This was supposed to be another tense but procedural day in what had become one of the most talked about celebrity trials in decades. But instead, it turned into a moment that would redefine Diddy's legacy and expose a wound no fame could conceal. The room was filled with reporters and curious civilians, all elbow to elbow, eyes flicking between their screens and the judge's bench. Cameramen adjusted their tripods, and court sketch artists were already sketching Diddy's face with a focused intensity. "We are about to hear a new piece of evidence," the judge said, voice calm but grave. An audio recording, Christian's voice was unmistakable, smooth, youthful, with a controlled cadence that made every word hit harder. He spoke not from rage, but resignation. About hidden conversations, secret guests, late-night jet charters, and the countless envelopes of cash passed under the table to ensure silence. It wasn't what he said that made people stare in stunned disbelief. It was how much he knew. These were details that could only come from someone close, someone who had been there. Diddy didn't move at first. He sat stone-faced, sipping water slowly, the glass trembling slightly in his hand. His lawyers leaned in, whispering, but he didn't respond. His eyes were locked on the table. His breathing quickened. His hands twitched. Anger flickered in his eyes like a flame growing under glass. The courtroom watched it unfold in real time, the mask slipping. "This is a setup!" he shouted, pointing at the speakers. "That's my son. He's lying. They made him say this." U.S. Marshals stepped forward. Diddy continued yelling, swearing, throwing accusations. His face was flushed, eyes wide with disbelief and rage. He had lost control. The hashtags, "Shut Diddy," "Breakdown," and Christian Speak skyrocketed to the top of trending charts. Clips of Diddy's outburst, recorded outside by courtroom sketch artists and whispered reports, were dissected by influencers, legal analysts, and fans alike. The internet became a battlefield of opinions, one side rallying behind Christian for doing what they said was the right thing, while the other accused him of selling out his own father for self-preservation. Christian, for his part, had gone completely silent. Not a single statement, not a single post. But insiders hinted this was just the beginning. For years, Diddy had been the face of hip-hop success, a mogul, a trendsetter, a kingmaker. But inside that courtroom, he looked nothing like the titan the world once knew. The cameras caught his expression as he returned to the bench, flushed, ashamed, and exhausted. Gone was the defiant swagger. This was a man trying to hold together the final threads of a crumbling empire. They issued a carefully worded statement later that evening. Mr. Combs is not only navigating a highly publicized legal trial, but also a deeply personal betrayal. He feels heartbroken, shocked, and wounded by what was played today. It is important to remember he is a father first, and this is a man confronting unimaginable pain. Behind closed doors, sources claimed Diddy was furious, not just at Christian, but at his legal team for not anticipating the audio leak. In court, his team emphasized that Diddy had consistently rejected all plea deals because he believes in his innocence and wants the full truth to come out. He's not just fighting this case. One lawyer said, he's trying to show that a black man, accused, attacked, and cornered, can still walk out of federal court with his head held high. The biggest question haunting everyone in the days following the outburst wasn't about guilt or innocence, it was, why did Christian do it? Some believe he turned over the recordings as a shield, a way to insulate himself from any legal backlash as the investigation deepened. Sources close to the family say Christian had grown distant over the past year. Whispers of family tension, private arguments, emotional distance. And now the audio revealed what may have been haunting him all along. Allegedly, there are more recordings, more files, more names. And worse, more family members who may be prepared to step forward. Prosecutors have remained tight-lipped, but sources suggest they're preparing for additional evidence to be admitted in the coming weeks. If those tapes exist, and if Christian speaks publicly, the trial may shift from high-profile scandal to full-blown historical reckoning. Judges, they said, frown on emotional volatility. Losing control in court, even under extreme stress, can create an image of instability, unpredictability, even guilt. It's the kind of breakdown that juries remember, the kind that lingers in their minds long after the evidence has been presented. Moments like these shape verdicts, one former federal prosecutor explained. You can't unsee a man exploding in court over his own son's voice. It speaks to fear. It speaks to loss of control. And to many, it speaks to guilt. A man who transformed himself from street hustler to music mogul, fashion icon, and media tycoon. He built empires, created stars, reinvented industries. But in this courtroom saga, his name no longer carried the weight it once did. The aura of untouchability had cracked. His team's once ironclad media machine couldn't outpace the truth spilling from that audio file. And as the days dragged on, the world watched a slow, painful unraveling of a man who had everything. Until his past caught up with him. Will he testify under oath? Will he provide more damning details about what happened behind the walls of his father's mansions and parties? For prosecutors, his testimony could be the silver bullet. For the defense, it could be the final nail. But no matter what happens, one truth remains clear. The moment Christian's voice played in court, something shifted forever. He heard the sound of everything he built beginning to collapse. His empire, once bolstered by platinum records and billion-dollar partnerships, now stood vulnerable and alone. This case has transcended legal proceedings. It's become a portrait of fractured family, fallen idols, and painful reckonings. It's about justice, yes, but it's also about legacy, loyalty, and the unforgiving gaze of public truth. With more evidence potentially on the way, Christian's silence may not last much longer. What he says next could not only reshape the trial, it could redefine the man once known as Diddy forever. The courtroom was tense, almost unnaturally still, the kind of silence that feels heavy with anticipation. Reporters lined the back wall, their fingers poised above laptop keys. The gallery was overflowing with faces both familiar and new. Journalists, legal analysts, former collaborators, and everyday citizens drawn in by the gravity of the spectacle. What started as just another day in Sean Diddy Combs' already high-profile trial was about to shift into something no one could have predicted. At the center of it all was Diddy, once hip-hop royalty, now a man staring down the avalanche of consequences from a lifetime of shadows. But nothing prepared the public, or Diddy himself, for what came next. A video. Not a grainy clip from a phone, not a snippet leaked to TMZ. This was something far more damning. And the voice narrating, parts of it, his own son, Christian Combs. Leading up to that fateful day, the trial had already made waves. Allegations of coercion, underground parties, hush money, and celebrity complicity had rippled through the entertainment world. Diddy's legal team, some of the best money could buy, had spent weeks chipping away at witness credibility, casting doubt on timelines and arguing everything was consensual. But the prosecution had stayed unusually quiet, confident. And on the morning of what was expected to be a relatively tame cross-examination of a minor witness, the lead prosecutor stood and requested the court's attention for a critical new piece of visual evidence. The lights dimmed. A monitor was wheeled into the center of the room. A projector clicked on, and the words, "Confidential video submitted by Christian Combs," appeared across the screen. Gasps broke the silence before a single frame even played. Christian's face appeared first. It was a private recording, time-stamped 6 months prior. He sat alone in what appeared to be a sleek, modern room, possibly a suite or a private office. His expression was heavy, pained, and deliberate. "I never wanted it to get here," Christian began, voice low but steady. "But people deserve to know." The video then cut to multiple clips, each seemingly compiled from security footage, phone recordings, and surveillance tapes. Some were blurred to protect identities, but the context was impossible to ignore. Scenes from Diddy's lavish parties showed guests being led into secluded rooms. Footage showed people entering and exiting with envelopes. There were shots of women, some looking confused, some intoxicated, being ushered into private elevators by known associates, and then the voiceovers. Christian described what viewers were seeing: coded conversations, flight bookings for unnamed guests, untraceable cash withdrawals, and even surveillance manipulation. "This wasn't just entertainment," Christian said over the footage. "This was control. This was exploitation." For several minutes, Diddy sat frozen. No visible emotion, just blank stillness. But as the video rolled on and his son's voice grew, more pointed, more emotional, you could see the shift. His breathing grew shallow. His jaw tightened. A single drop of sweat rolled down his temple. Christian's voice said, "I tried to tell him. I begged him to stop. I said, 'Dad, this isn't right.' And he told me, 'You think this world plays fair? I make the rules.' This is a lie. This is betrayal. That's my son," he shouted, leaping to his feet and pointing furiously at the monitor. "This is doctored. I raised him." The courtroom exploded into chaos. Reporters scrambled to capture the moment. The judge slammed the gavel repeatedly, demanding order. But Diddy wouldn't calm down. He pounded the table, shouted about being set up, and accused the prosecution of manipulating his family. U.S. Marshals were forced to intervene, physically escorting him out as he shouted, "This is my blood, outside." The courthouse, news broke faster than wildfire. The hashtags Diddy Breakdown and Christian Speaks began trending within minutes. News vans doubled in number. Late-night anchors tore up their scripts to focus on the eruption. It wasn't just a scandal anymore, it was a collapse. Fans were torn. Some hailed Christian as a brave truth-teller, finally lifting the veil on a decades-long mystery. Others branded him a traitor, accusing him of selling out his own father for attention or immunity. Though Christian hadn't appeared in court, that day, insiders close to the situation revealed that he voluntarily handed over the video after months of deliberation. He had reportedly grown disillusioned with the empire built around silence and spectacle. Sources say he initially tried confronting his father privately, urging him to come clean before the legal hammer dropped. When those efforts were met with threats and dismissals, Christian decided enough was enough. He didn't want to go down with the ship, one anonymous source stated. But more than that, he didn't want to be complicit anymore. Diddy's legal team immediately scrambled to contain the fallout. In a hastily arranged press conference, one of his lead attorneys tried to reframe the emotional outburst. Mr. Combs is not only dealing with a legal battle, but a profound personal betrayal. Imagine your own son, someone you raised, being weaponized against you in court. But the video was undeniable. Even if the defense argued context, the imagery and audio spoke volumes. The court of public opinion had already reached a verdict, and the official court wasn't far behind. Judges are human too. Displays of emotional instability in the courtroom, especially when they derail proceedings, tend to hurt a defendant's image. Prosecutors pounced on this, petitioning for a psychological evaluation and questioning whether Diddy was fit to stand trial. Perhaps the most tragic aspect of the video's release was the undeniable proof that the Combs family was deeply fractured. On the day of the video's reveal, not a single family member accompanied Diddy to court. No mother, no sister, no sons. He entered that courtroom alone and left it in handcuffs and humiliation. Insiders say that several of Diddy's other children are considering speaking out as well. Rumors swirl that there are more recordings, some from house staff, others from security teams, corroborating Christian's claims. What makes this trial so impactful isn't just the celebrity at its center. It's what it represents, a reckoning. The video suggested a systematic abuse of power, wealth, and influence. And the fact that it came from within, his own son, gave it a credibility and emotional weight that no tabloid expose ever could. Many now compare Diddy's downfall to those of other once untouchable moguls, but few of them had to face betrayal so intimately. Few of them were called out by their own blood. Diddy spent the night in a secured holding facility while his lawyers filed an emergency motion to dismiss the video as inflammatory and prejudicial. The motion failed. The judge ruled that the video was highly relevant and central to understanding the pattern of behavior alleged in the charges. Meanwhile, Christian has not made any further public statements. His silence only fuels speculation that more is coming. If he takes the stand, it could be the final nail in the coffin for his father's defense. There are trials that shift legal landscapes, and there are moments that shift culture. The day Christian Combs' video, played in court, did both. For Diddy, it wasn't just a piece of evidence, it was a mirror. And in it, he saw not the titan of music, not the business mogul, but a father abandoned, a legacy crumbling, and a truth too powerful to silence. As the world waits to see if more evidence will surface, one thing is certain. The empire Sean Combs spent decades building may never recover, not because of what was said by the media or the prosecution, but because of what was revealed by his own son. This trial is no longer about guilt or innocence in the traditional sense. It's about truth, legacy, and the cost of silence. And as the courtroom resumes tomorrow, all eyes remain fixed on one question. The air inside the courtroom was so tense it felt like something physical, like a wire pulled tight, ready to snap. The trial of Sean Diddy Combs had already been dominating headlines for weeks, but no one, not the press, not the public, not even the defense team, could have anticipated what would unfold on that historic morning. The bailiff called the room to order. Cameras flashed as the judge entered and whispers quieted to silence. The prosecution had something new, something that would shake the courtroom to its core. It wasn't a testimony, it wasn't documents. It was a video, and not just any video. This came from someone no one expected to turn on Diddy. When the prosecutor stood and announced they were submitting a video into evidence, the gallery stirred. Defense attorneys whispered to one another, eyes darting with concern. Then came the words that froze the entire room. This recording was provided by Christian Combs. The judge nodded solemnly and instructed the clerk to play the footage. As the screen lit up and the video began to roll, everyone leaned in. What they saw would change the trajectory of the trial, and possibly Diddy's life, forever. Christian appeared first on the screen. His face was serious, almost grim. He sat in what looked like a private recording room, the timestamp verifying that the footage had been created less than a year ago. His voice was measured but emotional. "This isn't easy for me," he began. "But I can't stay quiet anymore." What followed was a chilling narration over a series of clips, surveillance footage, cell phone videos, secret recordings. Christian spoke as scenes played out showing alleged incidents inside Diddy's private properties. Men and women were seen entering and exiting restricted areas. There were images of cash being handed over, private jets being boarded late at night, and unmarked vehicles arriving at odd hours. Christian explained each piece, the context, the people involved, the power dynamics. He spoke of conversations he'd overheard, favors being traded, and the culture of silence that had blanketed everything. Then came the most haunting moment, a clip of Christian as a teenager, caught on a security camera walking into one of the infamous red rooms, where, according to prior testimonies, some of the most disturbing acts were said to have taken place. Diddy remained composed at first. His hands were folded. He sipped water. But as the footage continued and his son's voice laid bare years of secrets, his demeanor began to shift. His jaw clenched. His hands started to tremble. Then, when Christian recounted confronting his father about what he saw, only to be dismissed and told to man up, Diddy